Okay, time to make an anime video. Nothing I've watched recently has inspired any interesting talking points, but I gotta keep this channel at least anime adjacent if I ever hope to get on Otaku's Anonymous. So I guess it's finally time. It's the closest I've had to a running gag over the years, but I think it's time I tell you why I objectively, unironically, and with 1000% sincerity, believe that A Sister's All You Need is the greatest anime of all time. I'm gonna assume most of you haven't seen or even heard of this series on account of the fact that the world is in a better place. As such, I'll warn you in advance that I'll be spoiling a lot of the plot in this video. If that's a deal breaker for you, go watch the anime, read the novels, then come back to this video with your freshly enlightened mind so that you can nod along to the wisdom I'm about to spit. The story follows Itsuki Hashima, a mid-tier light novel author with a cult following he developed thanks to his devotion to that genre. Look, art can't be afraid to tackle taboo subjects, okay? Thankfully, it's not actually about that.
Oh, thank you, merciful God.
The actual plot revolves around the daily lives of Itsuki and his friends, Haruto Fuwa, Miyako Shirakawa, and Nayu Takane. Haruto is a rival author and Itsuki's foil. Where Itsuki trades popularity and commercial success for not having to compromise his creative vision, Haruto leans into trends and a manufactured image that includes queerbaiting on Twitter to capture the Fujoshi market. Anyone who's dabbled in the creative fields knows this dichotomy, making art versus making rent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Characters first, themes later. Miyako is Itsuki's former classmate during his brief stint in college. She's directionless and unsure of who she wants to be, so she's immediately drawn to the self-assuredness Itsuki and his circle display in their passion for writing. She also secretly wants the D. Nayuta is a genius novelist who hit the Japanese young adult literature scene like a freight train. She credits Itsuki's work as her primary inspiration and the thing that got her out of her isolation after being bullied in school. As such, she very much openly wants the D. Rounding out the main cast is Itsuki's stepbrother Chihiro. Or should I say stepsister? That's right, the little sister-obsessed pervert secretly has a little sister. Chihiro hides her gender around Itsuki and his friends because it was the only way his dad would agree to marry her mom. Itsuki's dad took one look at what his son was reading and writing and rightfully feared for Chihiro's safety. These 5 friends gather at Itsuki's place on the regular to hang out, play obscure board games, and drink imported European beer. I highly encourage any beer snobs go read the light novels, by the way. Yomi Hirosaka writes about alcohol the way Tolkien writes about trees. Sounds like a fairly standard slice of life so far, right? Well, that's actually my first point about what makes this show so great.
Layers!
See, what I've shared with you thus far is just the surface level. As the story goes on, we learn more about each of the characters' true motivations. For example, Itsuki's pursuit of the ultimate little sister is really about his efforts to improve as an author his way. That is to say, without bending to the whims of critics and corporations. And both of those are just manifestations of his true goal to be the protagonist, to derive enough self-worth from his social station that he feels in control of his own destiny. Even the little sister shtick is just a coping mechanism he developed after getting rejected by a hot older girl in his tweens. Itsuki has a level of depth I haven't seen in a main character since Issei, and I'm only kind of joking. Another great example is Haruto, who's seen less critical acclaim but greater commercial success in his career by chasing trends and cultivating his social media persona. Or so we think. As we find out after his anime bombs, Haruto is actually just a basic bitch who unironically likes the kind of tropey fantasy schlock he's known for. He just plays into the criticism as a defense mechanism. Every character in this series possesses a level of depth and complexity that belies their existence in what is ostensibly an ecchi series. Which leads me to my next point. This show is for the ethical gooners. Now, far be it for me to tell anyone what they are and aren't allowed to masturbate to. Fantasy doesn't equal intent, censorship is fascism, whatever else I gotta say to keep the Pokemon fans from sending me death threats. I'm just saying, if you've been out of high school longer than you were in it and you're still jerking it to underage anime titty, let's just say I wouldn't be surprised to hear you've been hired by Manga 1. In this show, meanwhile, every sexualized character is of consenting age. The very idea of having sex with a 17-year-old is enough to send Itsuki into an emotional spiral. There are actual heart-filled rom-coms that can't say that much. And the horny shenanigans it does indulge in aren't just consensual. They're at least somewhat justified in the context of the narrative. Women aren't just groping each other because lol skinship. It's reference material for a romance scene one of them is writing, or part of a heated debate between lingerie and full nudity. Sure, it does eventually devolve into gratuity for gratuity's sake in the novels, but only after multiple volumes of grooming Miyako into believing that being free use for her friends is completely normal. Also, characters just fuck. None of that blue balls almost fucking but getting interrupted shit. The anime doesn't get far enough along in the story to show any of it, but let's just say Ashley Ono and Nancy Reagan have more in common than fiscal conservatism. My last point is about the anime specifically. You see, A Sister's All You Need does something that gives it more artistic merit than every other anime combined. It shows without telling. There are two scenes that illustrate my point perfectly, but ironically, I can only tell you about them and not show you because Kadokawa is the Disney of Japan. Well, I guess Nintendo would be more the Disney of Japan in terms of size and cultural impact. They're fast and loose with DMCAs is what I'm getting at. Anyway, the first scene I want to talk about is Nayuta's tragic backstory. Rather than have her do a sappy monologue over a montage of her isolating herself to escape relentless bullying, they just show the montage, no monologue. It trusts the audience to be able to piece together what's going on through context clues and audio-visual cues. In the age of second monitor content, this is canned air on Planet Spaceball. Then there's quite possibly my favorite scene in anime. For context, after Haruto breaks down due to the failure of his first anime, Miyako weeps out of sympathy and he falls for her because of it. Later, the group hits up an amusement park, where Haruto witnesses Miyako talking to Itsuki and, based on how she looks at him, can instantly tell where her feelings lie. The camera zooms in on Haruto's face and he solemnly says,
"So that's how it is."
If this were any other anime, this scene would have been ruined by some inner monologue explaining exactly what's happening and how it makes him feel like a goddamn soliloquy. Manga and light novels can't get away from this, but anime's only excuses are budget and sloth. And that's really the crux of my argument today. This series doesn't just take the easy route. It takes the time to lay out its world and its characters in a way where audiences can engage with the material on multiple levels. Philistines can still enjoy the tits, crude humor, and slice-of-life shenanigans, while us intellectuals can indulge in rich characters whose relationships with one another grow and develop over time. There's even an extra layer for hopeful professional writers like myself, given how much the story revolves around the art and business of writing. Different characters present different perspectives on that art versus rent debate I mentioned earlier. Questions are asked about the value of tropes in exploring novel concepts, and you get a close-up look at the light novel author career pipeline. It's an escapist fantasy for us American writers, who have to contend with Netflix failing to do to entertainment what Walmart did to retail, leading to fewer shows with fewer episodes, meaning fewer jobs in an already hyper-competitive field. And even if you did manage to break into the industry by, say, doing most of the work yourself and recruiting a cult of parasocial theater kids to do your marketing, there's always the chance your life's work will get erased from history by some CEO looking for a tax write-off. Meanwhile, some glorified fanfic writer across the Pacific is getting a book deal and a 12-episode anime for yet another self-insert power fantasy with video game mechanics. No, my last Blacklist evaluation didn't go well. How could you tell?